Hello my family focused friends, good morning and welcome to another video on family focus. As usual, I have to check in with you guys just to make sure that we're all doing okay, we're all staying focused on what is important. All right, try not to get distracted. So on today's video I want to explore two words and just how they impact the way we experience life, the way we look at life, and basically just the lens through which we view the world, our experiences, and the people that we will interact with along the way. But before I do that, there's something I want to share with you, something I heard that I thought was just amazing and very profound. Hopefully you will find it as interesting and as profound as I did. So I was listening to an interview with Dr. Jordan Peterson, and he was talking about God and whether or not we believe in God. And what he said was, our belief in God or not does not change the fact that he exists. So whether or not we believe in God, it has nothing to do, it doesn't affect his existence in any way, shape, or form. And so we can also apply that principle to ourselves. Whether or not somebody believes in us and our abilities and our potential, it doesn't affect whether or not we have those potentials and whether or not we can and will accomplish the things that we're supposed to do, because essentially what is important in that situation is that we believe in ourselves and we know what we're capable of, and we set out to do that, and we allow nothing or no one to interfere or to interrupt our belief in ourselves, our capabilities, and our potential. The next thing he said was, he spoke about our relationship with God, and I believe he was asked, how do we know whether or not we have a relationship with God? And his answer was just so simple, it almost seemed silly. So he basically said, the easiest way to tell the kind of relationship you have with God, or even whether or not you have a relationship with God, is to look at the quality of the life that you are living. So the quality of our lives is basically, is basically an indication of the kind of relationship we have with God and whether or not we actually do have a relationship with God. And I thought that was just so interesting and so profound, so simple, but just so interesting and just so profound. Because when you match that back to what Dr. Miles Monroe says in his presentation, where he talks about God being our manufacturer, and the fact that manufacturers, whenever they create a product, they create it for success, and built into that product is everything that the product requires, or the user of that product requires, for a successful use of the product, and also for the product to perform at its best. So it's in the manufacturer's best interest that we are successful, and our relationship with our creator, God, is no different. It's no different. We are created for success. Yeah, so use that as I have committed myself to do, is to use that explanation as a measuring stick for just how the results I get in my life, and that will be a determining factor and basically let me know that, okay, yeah, you got a bosom buddy, yeah man, you got a best friend, gotta walk with you, yeah. So yeah, those two things I wanted to share because they had a very profound impact. Perspective and expectation. our expectations basically comes from our perspective. So the perspective we have of the world determines the expectations we have of ourselves, the things, the people, situations, circumstances we find ourselves in. And that could basically shape the way we approach situations, the way we just go about our day-to-day lives. Yeah. So I know of a situation where there was a little girl that grew up with a family. She basically, when she, not her birth parents, but relatives, she grew up with relatives and stuff. Because of her age, so she lived with her aunt and her cousins and their children. Because of her age, the age gap between herself and her aunt's children, and as a sign of respect and whatnot, she would refer to them as auntie instead of, simply because of the age difference. So over the years, she grew up by calling them auntie. She saw them as her aunt. She took on the perspective, the identity, the belief that these people, they're my aunt and their niece, and that's the kind of relationship that she was expecting, because that's what she built up in her mind. So she was expecting to be treated like a niece, like how they would treat their niece. And so because of that expectation, when the treatment she was expecting was not, delivered, or she didn't have that experience, she became very disappointed. And very resentful of the situation. And it wasn't until later on, when she got older, she realized that her expectation was different, and her perspective of the situation was different from their perspective and their expectation so much. Because what she came to realize, or what she came to understand, is that although she was calling them aunt, and she grew to see them as her aunt, it appears as though it may not have been the same for them. And because they only saw her as their cousin, they could not treat her as a niece or treat her as though they were her aunt. And so that's where you have a difference in just, you have all these people existing in the same situation, but everybody, or on two sides, had different perspective of the situation and also different expectations. So there were individual perspectives and unmet expectations, especially from the side of the child. So she grew up in the situation just resenting the people that she grew up with. But at the same time, there were just other things that she was trying to accomplish, and she spent her entire life, and even after having moved away, she spent her life trying to get them to treat her, to extend to her the same treatment they would have extended to their other actual nieces and nephews. That never came. And as I said before, it was only when she got older that she understood the psychology of what was going on in the situation. And it was at that time that she was able to kind of just let go of some of the things that she had found difficult to let go of over the years, as it relates to just the relationship that they had and the environment that she grew up in as a result of that. So I'm sharing this story with you because we all live life from our perspective, and also based on our expectations, which comes from or comes out of the perspective that we have about our world, our word. And that's why I have found this book by Don Miguel Ruiz very, very helpful, and it became a significant part of my journey. You know, I've read it a few times, or I've listened to it a few times, and it has really helped me. And this is why the chapter that he has on take nothing personally has been so very helpful to me, and can be helpful to all of us, just in different areas and different situations in our lives. If we adopt that mindset of taking nothing personally, irrespective. Alright, so let me explain it this way. If we understand that the way we see, experience, and think about things is as a result of how we see the world, or we experience the world, and the way another person or other persons see, feel, experience the world is based on their perception and their perspective, based on their experiences of the world, then we will understand that the things people do and say to, about, around us really has nothing to do with us. The action may be towards us or directed at us, but it's not coming from a necessarily informed place about us and our perspective and our position in the situation. And there have been several, I've seen on social media, several drawings to depict just how, for example, take two persons standing on opposite sides of the number 9. One person is going to see it as a 6, and one person is going to see it as a 9. They're both looking at the same thing, but based on the angle, the perspective that they're looking at it from, they're both seeing two different numbers. Right, so that's what I'm saying. So we, and this is something I have learned and I continue to learn, and hopefully, you know, as I go along, as I elevate, as I grow, as I evolve, you know, it becomes a part of my core, part of my foundation, a part of my operating system. We can't take anything personally. It's in our best interest, not the next person, our best interest, to not take anything personally, because the other people that we interact with, they're acting based on their perspective, their wants, their needs, based on the situation that they find themselves in. Now, the responsibility that we have in those situations is to make a decision. Do we want to remain in this situation? Is this person's action supportive of me and what I am trying to accomplish in my life? So that's where the responsibility lies on the individual to make a choice in that moment, in that situation. Do I want to continue to be a part of this, or am I going to move on? All right, so that's basically, I could say more, but I don't want to make this video too long. So that's it, guys. We have to be mindful of these two things as we go out in our day-to-day. We have to be mindful of our perspectives and our expectations based on our perspectives, and also the perspective and the expectation of the person or persons we will be interacting with on a day-to-day basis. So maybe you could take a moment right now to examine your perspective, and based on that, the results of that, you can adjust your expectations or just change your environment and your situation altogether. All right? I hope you found something I said interesting and of some value. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.